point, but it is hopeless.
If you've somehow managed to play the game online, you probably have seen a lot of players playing with Falconeer and Warlock. Not only because they're new, but because they're actually kind of good, especially Warlock. And I managed to make this crazy Warlock build. It's basically a nuke that just clears the screen, even off screen sometimes. So you can activate like 4 abilities with one button, like actually 5 abilities with one button. Let me show you how this build plays. Okay, so this is a 100 corruption map. It's not very high corruption yet. I haven't unlocked high corruption maps yet. So I'm basically just gonna walk and I'm gonna activate Chthonic Fissure and sometimes activate Soul Feast. I can just activate Soul Feast alone, and for low level maps, that will be enough to activate all the abilities that I have. So let's see. So I'm just gonna walk and just explosions, and I don't even know what's happening on the screen, and just everything's dying. It's that simple. It's very simple. I'm just activating one button here and I'm walking. I'm not taking damage. I have high health. I have ward. My mana is a bit low, but I'm gonna talk about that later. And that's it. So yeah, that's basically the build. You just walk around and activate Chthonic Fissure. You just walk around and activate Chthonic Fissure and everything dies. It can even be better. That's good enough for like high level maps. If you just want to go fast and map clear low level maps, you can just activate Soul Feast, and that alone is gonna nuke the whole map and it's gonna kill enemies even off screen. So if I'm doing like a low level map like this one, I can just activate Soul Feast and things just die, even off screen.
Your death has come. It eludes them.
And just like this.
Your death.
And of course I can just activate Chthonic Fissure. But all the abilities that I have are connected. They all activate together. And so all these abilities that I have, Soul Feast, Chthonic Fissure, Rip Blood, you see here, like I haven't used it, but it's activating, and Chaos Bolts. Now Chaos, Chthonic Fissure and Chaos Bolts are doing most of the damage, and everything else is just boosting the damage and applying debuffs. So the way this works is I'm activating Soul Feast, and when this is active, it's gonna curse all enemies and it's gonna be doing damage to them. And it's also going to activate Chthonic Fissure if you hit rare and unique enemies. So you can just activate this directly and it's gonna be doing a lot of damage and eat up all your mana. Or if you can just activate Soul Feast and it's gonna kill most small enemies, and if you hit a big enemy, it's gonna activate Chthonic Fissure, which is just crazy. And once Chthonic Fissure is activated, it's going to activate Chaos Bolts. And Chaos Bolts do a lot of damage. It's actually insane. And that's not it. If Chaos Bolts activate, Rip Blood also activates, and Bone Curse also activates. So you see all the abilities here are all, they can all activate with just one ability. So if you just activate Soul Feast, Chthonic Fissure is gonna activate, Chaos Bolt is gonna activate, Rip Blood's gonna activate, Bone Curse is gonna activate. It's insane. And the way I have now, this build is not easy to make. It's very difficult. As you can see, I'm just using one. If I'm just using Chthonic Fissure, you can see all my mana is gone. The way I'm handling mana is kind of difficult. I'm gonna show you later exactly how I'm managing to sustain mana. The mana you see here is not really true. Like It's going down here very quickly, but I'm actually gonna be getting mana back when I hit enemies. So the way all these abilities activate is because we have Wheel of Torment. Now if you look at the base, it gives you +3 to Acolyte spells, so that's alone is crazy. And below it you see I'm gonna get Necrotic Penetration with Torment, and the big one, this is the most important one, 20% chance to cast Chthonic Fissure when you hit a boss or rare enemy with Soul Feast, and you don't have one active. So that's why it sometimes activates when I can just walk around like this, and if there's a lot of enemies, especially in higher level maps, Chthonic Fissure is just gonna automatically activate, and that's gonna activate the rest of the skills. So this is the most important item. Now you only need the unique, but as you can see, the mana, when I activate Soul Fissure, when I activate Chthonic Fissure, the mana goes down very quickly. So I have it as a legendary. I have increased mana regen added, and yeah, so this is with mana, increased mana regen. So I have a crazy amount of mana regen, and it's still going down very quickly. But I have a way to solve the mana problem. I'm gonna show you in a bit. So yeah, this is the basic thing that you need. This is the basic item that you need. Now for the helmet, I do have a set because I'm gonna be using necrotic damage on all my skills. I have Isadra's set, the helmet, the belt, and the gloves, which all give a chance to apply Damned with necrotic spells, and necrotic penetration with Damned, and mana efficiency with necrotic spells. Since all the abilities are necrotic now, it's gonna be reducing the amount of mana we use. So I have a lot of reduced mana cost and mana regen, and it's still using a lot. So this build is extremely difficult to make. Like, you need to solve the mana problem. You need this set at least, or better, or if you have a better way to regen mana. And for the chest, I have +2 to Chthonic Fissure and increased damage over time, and increased spirit frequency with Chthonic Fissure. That's extremely useful because that's gonna be the way, that's gonna be most of the damage that we do. And elemental resistance and ward is just nice defensive stats. For the rings, I just have increased mana regen and elemental resistance to cap out my elemental resistances. Here I have physical resistance, here I have void resistance. And for the amulets, Aurora's Time Glass, I just have this for defenses. You can replace this if you feel like the damage is a bit low. You can replace this with something else that gives you more damage or mana. But it's a great amulet. It basically prevents you from dying. Coupled with the amount of ward that I have, it's a bit crazy. For the boots, I have Simon's Fate. It produces a cooldown recovery for transplant, so I can use it often, and increases it increases damage over time by 120, which is crazy. And for the relic, I have a increased mana regen, ward per second, physical resistance, void resistance, and intelligence. And the idols I'm going to talk about in a minute. But for the passives, in the Acolyte skill tree, I just have increased damage, vitality to increase my health, and intelligence, and increased necrotic damage. And you see, I have a lot of points in Lich and Necromancer too. In Necromancer, I have this node to increase my health and to be able to get Cursed Blood, which increases necrotic damage. And in Lich, I also have this node that gives intelligence and mana regen and increased necrotic damage. And in the Warlock skill tree, I have increased necrotic damage with the chaos flames here. I have 1 point in soul stealer. I do want to get more points here. Maybe if you want, if you feel like the mana is still a problem for you, you can increase this. You can max this out if you want. And up here I have 1 point in spiteful decay. It would be also nice to have more points here, but I want to maximize some of the nodes down here. So I just have this to unlock Cauldron of Blood, which increases bleed chance. And if you have 5 points, you get bleed overload duration when you cast a physical skill. When you cast a physical skill on enemies. So what this means is most of the skills I have are necrotic except for transplant. I don't have it allocated here. I don't have it specialized. I just use it for as a movement ability. But as you can see, it's a physical. If you look down at the tags, it says it's physical. So I'm using it as a movement skill, and with 5 points in this node, I can use transplant to activate Rip Blood on enemies and get bleed overload. And with this, and after it with this node, Crimson Favors, increased damage with bleed, increased bleed chance with Rip Blood. So if you have bleed overload, we constantly activating Rip Blood every second. So when we transplant, we activate bleed overload, which will trigger Rip Blood on 5 enemies, and because we have 4 points in this node here, Rip Blood will be activating every second. And I have Health Leech and Health Leech against cursed enemies. This is just defensive. You can see my health is very high. And I have Ward and high endurance. As you can see, my defenses are crazy. I don't have high health, but I have high amount of Ward and endurance. And having the Leech here might be a bit excessive, but makes the build extremely tanky. You could take the points here and put them in Soul Eater or Spiteful Decay if you want. And I have this node here that increases intelligence and vitality, and I have Chain of Ruin, which increases damage chance. And if I have 5 points, when I cast, and if I have 5 points when I cast a necrotic skill, which is most of my abilities, I will get Damned Overload. So I have 2 overloads, Bleed Overload and Damned Overload that I can get, and that's very important. I'm gonna show you why later on. But for the last node here, I'm gonna get I have the Ashen one. I just have it to increase necrotic damage, and when I have Damned Overload, I get Witchfire. So all the skills, all the abilities, all the debuffs and buffs all just connect together. And the reason I have overloads is because of the idols. So the idols I have are these. It increases damage over time while you have an ailment overload. So I have 2 overloads that I can get, Bleed Overload and Damned Overload. And these increase damage over time while I have the overloads. The rest of the idols here are just increased damage over time and necrotic damage. So I'm getting a lot of damage from the idols. So if I go to enemies down here and look at the health bar, you can see how many like debuffs they have. It's insane amount. Actually, let me show you in a high level map. So I'm gonna show you here. This is 100 corruption map. So look at the debuffs that the enemies have. Look at the ailments they have. They have crazy amount of stacks. Like they die before I can even show you. I'm trying to find a big enemy here. Look at this. Bleed, dabbed, necrotic. They have everything, even fire. You can see they die just because I'm activating Soul Feast before I see them. So yeah, I'm stacking a crazy amount of debuffs on enemies. Now for Soul Feast, I have ward gained and reduced mana cost and ward gained from fragments. So you just get crazy amount of ward when you activate this, and even more ward here and mana gain. So when I'm doing like high level maps, there's a lot of enemies, I'm just getting mana back. So that's why mana is not really... You see the mana going down when I'm just activating the ability, but when I'm actually in maps and hitting enemies, I'm actually sustaining mana. Not just with this node, but there's other nodes I'm going to show you that also give me mana. Mana efficiency down here, and cast speed, mana efficiency, and poison chance doesn't matter here. I just want to get damned chance per intelligence and necrotic penetration with damned. Yeah, I just had to allocate something here because I had this node by mistake. So yeah, you just want a damned chance per intelligence and necrotic penetration with damned. So we're not actually doing a lot of damage with Soul Feast. It's just everything coupled together, getting all the debuffs on enemies, getting mana back, getting ward, and activating everything at once. It all starts with Soul Feast. So after you activate Soul Feast, you will get Chthonic Fissure, which I have here, increased damage, and damage is doubled. If enemies are cursed, they're always gonna be cursed, so you're getting double here. Mana efficiency and spirit release chance. We're not actually going to be using spirits technically because we have this node here, Chthonic Rapture. Instead of spirits, you cast Chaos Bolts. So that's how we're doing like crazy amount of damage, because we're casting Chaos Bolts. And that, and as you can see, like this is why the mana is going down very quickly. It uses a lot of mana. Down here I have more damned stacks. Even though we're not using spirits. Now actually I don't really know if this actually works, because we change spirits from spirit, we change spirits to Chaos Bolts. I don't know if this activates. I honestly, I'm not sure. But I have it, and I have damage per turn necrotic resistance. So this increases our damage a bit. And I have shred necrotic's resistance here. And the Fissure releases more spirits, which we change to Chaos Bolts here. And I have this node here that adds a secondary Fissure. It increases mana by a lot, but as you can see, it adds another Fissure, which increases the amount of bolts we cast and the amount of damage that we do. So that's all. That's it for Chthonic. That's everything for Chthonic Fissure. And Chaos Bolts is where we do most of the damage. We have increased projectiles, increased projectile speed, increased area, and extra projectiles here, and increased damage down here. And this is very important. I have this node here. This node gives you health and mana against cursed enemies. So this node is very important to sustain mana. You need this. If you're gonna add like increased mana costs, and in Chthonic Fissure you have increased mana cost here and increased mana cost with this node down here, your mana is gonna be going down very quickly. So having this node helps with mana sustain. Because we're gonna be hitting enemies with a lot of projectiles, we're gonna be getting a lot of mana back. And down here I have health gain per curse, and these nodes here are gonna cast Bone Curse and Rip Blood. It's kind of crazy that this one skill can activate 2 skills at once. So for Bone Curse, I just have debuffs and bleed chance, and I have it converted to necrotic damage here, kill threshold, and increased damage. And for Red Blood, there's 2 ways to cast it, with Chaos Bolts and with Transplant. So I only have I have increased damage here, and automatically recasts on kill. So if we kill an enemy with Red Blood, it will automatically recast. Blood Splatter and Blood Splatter chance, and decreased area, and Blood Splatter damage. So that's all the abilities, they all connect. So again, Soul Feast will activate Chthonic Fissure, which will activate Chaos Bolts, which will activate Bone Curse and Rip Blood. And Rip Blood's gonna activate also from Transplant. So this is kind of crazy. Everything just connects. You have high endurance, high ward. When you activate Chthonic Fissure, when the bolts hit, you're gonna be getting mana, you're gonna get health, you're gonna get ward. It's crazy. And this is not the best, like, perfect build. You can even improve it even more. You can replace some things here. You can, if you don't like the amount of damage that you're doing, you can take down some of the resistances or some of the endurance or ward and just like get increased damage. It's insane. But yeah, this build, you don't want to like start on a new character with this build. This is just an end game build. Like if you want to have fun with Warlock once you finish the game and like try to get some of the crazy items here, you do need Wheel of Torment, and you need a full set. So it's not easy to get. So making this build is not easy. It's difficult, but it's extremely fun. And there's probably different ways to play it. Like since Chaos Bolts alone can activate 2 abilities, you can just have Chthonic Fissure and activate Chthonic Fissure without Soul Feast, and just activate the Chaos Bolts with this node and just play with these 3 abilities or 4 abilities together, and replace Soul Feast with something else if you want. Now, if you notice down here in Soul Feast, there is Blood Splatter chance. The reason I don't have this is because of this node here. It converts the skill from necrotic damage to physical damage, which I don't want. I wish I can get these abilities without converting the damage, but that's the way it works. So yeah, that's it. If you like this video, please press like, and if you want to see more Last Epoch content, be sure to subscribe because I will be posting more. Take care.